Welcome back to the channel, boys. Who's ready to talk some fighting stuff? I might look a little bit tired recently because my whoop has been saying that I've got sleep debt that I've got to get back. Anyway, who gives a about that? I'm just giving you an insight into my life. I'm sorry, okay? I want you to know a little bit about me. Anyway, let's talk about Dillon Danis potentially joining the UFC. I actually want to make a little bit more MMA UFC content on this channel. I've made a little bit in the past. It's just with this KSI, Logan Paul, Dillon Danis fight coming up in a week and a bit. That's taken up the majority of the narrative. But Dillon Danis has just came out and said that he wants to become a UFC champion. First off, before we dive into anything, I didn't realise Dillon is still going on this Twitter rampage. I thought he'd stopped because of the whole lawsuit thing. So Nina Agdal, Logan Paul's wife, is suing Dillon Danis and filing for a restraining order. Dillon said it's potentially going to cost him 400 grand just in legal fees. I thought because of that, Dillon Danis had stopped his Twitter rampage against Nina, but oh no, he hasn't. He's still somehow finding pictures of Nina. Obviously, this lawsuit isn't going to hold much weight because these are just pictures that he's found online. So once again, these are videos shared by Nina Agdal herself. So she's on a date with some lad and then crying over something. Why do girls always film themselves crying? Can anyone answer me that? The amount of times I've seen on my own Instagram feed birds filming themselves crying. I don't get it. I sometimes feel weird just filming myself doing a vlog. When I go to this Misfits event next week, I'm going to have to be like, hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Make sure you subscribe. Like a proper YouTuber. Maybe I shouldn't really be that embarrassed because you've got girls out here who cry into the camera. Someone said here, bro, if you lose against Logan, it's going to be the biggest L in history. Not really. I think everyone expects Dillon to lose. So I think if Dillon loses, everyone's going to be like, well, yeah, we all knew that was going to happen. If he wins, now that could be a different story, and that will tie into UFC implications, which we'll get into in a minute. Once again, more Nina Agdal pictures. And although Dillon Danis isn't a saint, this is for all you Logan Paul defenders out there. Dillon Danis said, guys, give Logan Paul a break. He only made fun of suicide victims for clicks and scammed his audience out of millions and peddles literal snake oil juice and got engaged to super escort. Oh shit. A super escort. Oh, Dillon. Another one. Interesting, Dillon said, people criticise me for not fighting in years, but look at this injury. It looks bad, doesn't it? He tore fewer ligaments than I did, and I had the heavy surgery twice in the same year. That is horrible. And that is true. Dillon Danis did have a reason to be out of the game, and then he was meant to fight KSI, and that fell out, and he had some personal stuff going on. Life happens. Life gets in the way. Dillon with the baddies. Right, so yesterday, Dillon Danis was on the Flagrant Andrew Schultz podcast. I haven't watched it all yet. It's 3.5 hours. But Dillon Danis come across quite good. To be honest, in interviews, in recent interactions, like when he was with Aiden Ross, he comes across a little bit introverted. He doesn't speak very clearly, but I think he done really well on this podcast from what I've seen up to now. He's very charismatic. He controls the room pretty well. He's quite funny. He's like one of the boys pretty much. And I've got to be honest, he does have a little bit of potential star power. And we have to consider he's only fought twice. Who else has 2 fights and has this much popularity and clout? Granted, it's from all the influence of boxing, but still, we've got to remember that the UFC signed CM Punk purely based on his popularity and notoriety that he got from wrestling. So what's stopping the UFC from signing Dillon Danis, who's a legit grappler? I want to show you a couple clips from this podcast which stand out.
I don't think you will, but it'd be really fun if you won.
But who do you want to win? Like if you're like...
No, you. It'd be really fun if you won.
No, but in like a friend way. Like you know,
I don't know, Logan. Both times he's on the pod, I wasn't on. So
you like me better?
So I like you better.
Oh, hell yeah. I want you to win so then you can be a fighter again.
I mean, yeah.
But that was just like that was like a backhanded compliment.
But I know you want to fight.
Yeah.
So this will, I think you in this...
Who cares about boxing? It's not a real fight.
Nah, but you in this like YouTube influencer scene is way better than...
No, I want to go UFC, bro.
Dillon said he wants to go to the UFC. This fella on the left is saying that him within the YouTube boxing scene is so much more entertaining than him being in the UFC. I disagree. At the end of the day, what do we really want to see? We want to see real fights. We want to see who is the better fighter. It's good for these influencers because boxing is the most widely accessible sport for the mainstream, for the masses. We have to accept that MMA is still relatively new in comparison to boxing. We still kind of live in times where people say, oh, do you do that UFC, do you? Where people don't understand the difference between the organisations and the actual sport of mixed martial arts. And also, if it was MMA that these influencers were doing, they'd end up grappling, falling on the floor, rolling around, and they won't know enough grappling to do anything noteworthy. So it'd be a little bit of a snooze fest. With boxing, you're guaranteed people are going to get punched in the face. Now, granted, Dillon's only had 2 fights, but he is a legit grappler. He said he wants to go into the UFC, and I think he could do it, especially with this newfound popularity. Let's see what else they say.
It's like, it's not that dangerous.
Yeah, I know, but
the
I've done
upside is
jiu-jitsu
way
for 15
high.
years, bro.
But the upside is way high.
I know. I could choke these guys out in 2 seconds. It's like...
So that fella's saying boxing isn't really that dangerous and you're getting a lot more benefit from it, which is true in a way. He's getting a lot more money doing this than he was getting with Bellator, as far as I'm aware, or if he had to climb the ranks of the UFC roster. But as he said, I've been doing jiu-jitsu for 15 years. He's a grappler and more of an MMA fighter at heart than he is a boxer. So his heart isn't going to be in the boxing as much as it is in MMA.
So stupid. It's like, why are we throwing hands? Like, I just, you know what I mean? It's your turn now. I know you like me, so.
Now we jump forward to this section where this guy with the long hair, you can't see me cursor, criticises Dillon Danis' sparring footage. And I've got a few things to say about this. Let's see what he says first.
We're friends.
Boxing wise, I've only seen Logan box. I haven't seen, the only footage I've seen of you boxing is the one where you're doing this shit. So I'm like...
Now when he said that, I was like, what does he mean? Because he said, when you were doing this. And that's when I realised he meant this sparring footage of Dillon Danis here. Now we'll come back to this footage in a minute. Let's see what this guy says.
One where you're doing this. So I'm like, no, stop it, bro.
Bro, that's a good combo.
Son,
Bro, stand up.
Son, I love this.
Stand up.
Yeah.
You think that's a bad combo?
Okay, what is
Can you
it?
do
What
it
is the
again?
combo?
Can you just do it again so we can see?
Well, I need a fucking opponent.
Come on. Do it again. Just,
What is the combo?
I'll put the hands
What is the
up.
combo?
Okay, so go over there.
Okay, ready? Here we go.
Back on?
All right. All right.
Because I was
we're back
far
on.
away.
We're back on,
Okay,
baby.
so to cover the distance, he had his hands up.
Yeah.
So if I would just come in, he's just gonna hit me. So I think I threw a. Was that uppercut?
No.
What is that?
It's an uppercut. Watch. Watch.
It's funny the way the Indian lad or the Pakistani lad laughs and says, what is that? When he does the uppercut movement. But he's not going to throw with perfect technique and go, oh, you're on about the uppercut one? He's just casually asking, oh, you're on about the uppercut one? You got the friggin' fight expert on the couch.
I think I threw an uppercut.
Yep.
Uppercut. So he keeps
Yep.
his hands up. So you got to
Yep.
keep your hands up. And then I went body. That was it.
Yeah.
And everybody was going crazy. So, but if I lead sometimes, if it's just a jab, we got to come with some other stuff. So I came uppercut, body.
It just didn't seem super fast. I assumed you put out the footage.
How'd that feel? You heard that? You felt that?
I felt it.
Yeah,
bro. I
exactly.
felt
So when I land.
Okay, so the surfer dude doesn't think it's that fast. Tell me you don't know how to fight without telling me you don't know how to fight. And what we have to remember here is that he's a grappler. Considering that, there's nothing here that's really that bad. People are saying in the comments that he's leaving his hands down. R.I.P. He leaves himself open like Logan Paul's fiance. Someone else said, gotta keep them hands up, buddy. There's plenty of fighters who fight with the hands down. I hate when people say that. I actually seen a video of Conor McGregor sparring today and someone said, you've got to keep your hands up. There's people in the comments who will tell professional fighters like Conor McGregor to keep the hands up. That's why posting sparring footage, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Someone said, I hope he sticks to Twitter after this. Paul is going to hurt him badly. Terrible striking skills. Okay, so we're just going to act like Logan Paul, Mr. Windmill himself, is an amazing striker. Logan Paul against Mayweather literally done this.
Fisco here. Tries to get.
So let's not crucify Dillon Danis here. I told you I've got zero lung capacity. And I've also seen quite a few YouTubers critique this footage, which of course the technique isn't perfect. And let's actually address the strikes he's throwing. It's not exactly an uppercut. And it's not quite a jab. It's almost a hybrid between the two. It's like a long uppercut or like a screw and jab, and it's meant to pierce the guard of someone. You can also throw it with a neutral fist, so rather than throwing like this, you can throw it like that, and it gets through the guard better. Now, the main thing, if you want to critique, you could say, oh yeah, he's got his hands down. But as someone who likes to fight with the hands down myself, not all the time, but on occasion, there's nothing really wrong with it as long as you know what you're doing and you've got good defensive skills and your hands come up when it matters. People are critiquing that part where his feet are completely off the floor and they're quite close together, almost crossing over. If Dillon does something like this in the fight, he is open to get countered. One of the last things you want to be doing is jumping and punching. But once again, we're not watching masterful boxers go up against each other here. So let's not sit here and pretend that there's a crazy massive skill discrepancy between Dillon and Logan Paul. Logan still has a lot of holes in his game.
And it just, I assumed that you put out the footage because it looked like...
Dude, those were great shots.
Sit down.
The shots were good.
Those were great shots.
Sit down.
We move forward to where Dillon is talking about wanting to be a UFC champion.
The other two guys, and then it was just whatever. But
What's the end goal?
UFC champion.
So it's UFC.
Yeah.
Do you have to get bought out of Bellator to do
Bellator
UFC?
is bought by PFL now.
And
which is a sinking company. No one is buying the pay-per-views.
PFL is owned by the Saudi.
I don't know who owns PFL, but they got some crazy money because they ain't making no money.
Yeah.
I don't know how the hell they're doing it.
So, do you have to get bought out of PFL?
I don't know how that works yet, or they cut me.
They cut you, and then you hopefully get a UFC contract, and then you want to get the belt.
I'm
at
boys
what?
with Dana, so 170.
Wait, you want to do 170?
Yeah, 170. Yeah.
I think if Dillon approaches this right, he could get a UFC contract. Now, it could just be a 1 or 3 fight deal that he gets, or maybe they put him on the Contender Series, or if they were to do another Ultimate Fighter, which after the last Ultimate Fighter with Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler, it pretty much bombed, because you barely even get to see any interaction between Chandler and Conor, and the majority of the show is pretty much made up of these fellas who you don't care about talking to the camera about the life back home and how they miss the family and the kids. It's a little bit boring, it's a bit outdated now, but regardless, I definitely think there's a future for Dillon within the UFC. Now, 170 pounds, that division's quite stacked. If we just take a look at the welterweight rankings right here, we've got Leon Edwards as the champion. You got Kamaru Usman, Colby Covington, Bilal Muhammad, Hamzat, who's now moving up to middleweight to fight Paulo Costa. You've got Shavkat, who's fighting Wonderboy. Please don't destroy Wonderboy. Wonderboy is one of my favourite fighters. I went to see him versus Till in Liverpool, which was an incredible event. Shavkat's good, but I really want Wonderboy to win that fight. You've got Wonderboy in it, Jeff Neal, Sean Brady, Vicente Luque. The division gets a little bit thin outside of the top 10. I could definitely see Dillon winning some of these fights in the top 15 or top 20 rankings. Now, in the top 10 of the welterweight division, maybe not. It's a stacked division. He definitely needs more fights under his belt. Dillon Danis is 30 years old. He's not getting any younger. If this is going to happen, it needs to happen now. You say the fighters don't really make many improvements after 30 years old. You still will, but just not as much as in your 20s. So we need to start getting that experience in now, because we know one of the main factors which contributes towards being able to win is how active you've been in recent years. I love Conor McGregor, but is he going to win against Chandler? I don't know. Maybe from a stylistic standpoint, yeah, he could win, but Chandler's had the activity, and I've come to learn in recent years, when you're betting on someone, the safe bet is usually going with the active fighter.
And you're not a big 170. Like,
I
I
think
feel
I'm bigger than most guys, no?
like you're 6 foot.
I can probably make 55.
That's the thing I was wondering. Is it worth to make 55?
Someone
and
said
then-
my head is too big for 55, but I don't know. That's what they told me. I don't know. I have a big head. So.
Head size actually matters, so Dillon's definitely got the head size of a welterweight, maybe even a small middleweight. But if we take a look at his frame, this isn't really the frame of a welterweight. If you just look at his head, so put your hand over his body, he definitely looks like a welterweight or even a middleweight. But then if you cover his head and just look at his body, he looks like he's a 155 pounder in the off season. He's lean, but he's not shredded, which means that he can definitely get down to 155. I would personally like to see him at 155. I think the matchups make better sense. You've got Makhachev at the top, who's going to fight Charles Oliveira. Oh my word. My head says Makhachev, my heart says Oliveira. But these matchups make better sense. I think a lot of these fights here are winnable for Dillon Danis, right up until maybe the top 5. Could he be Fiziev? I don't know. Fiziev's got impeccable takedown defense. Maybe Tarazukian? I don't know. He's got great grappling. Gamrot, also amazing grappler. He'll have a lot more success there than he would in the welterweight division. Now, all that being said, if he loses his fight against Logan Paul, I think all that momentum just drifts away because he hasn't got much of a history within MMA to really fall back on. It's just 2 fights and then this Logan Paul fight. It's not like he can really run with the narrative that, oh, this was just a fluke. Look at all these other fights I've had. Look at this body of work I've had. This is how I usually fight. This was just a one-off. If he had 10, 15 fights within MMA and a 90% win rate and then lost this Logan Paul fight, then yeah, he could probably build himself back up. But if he loses this Logan Paul fight, I don't know. I think all that momentum goes away. But he's obviously got UFC championship aspirations, which is really good to see because we are looking at someone who could be a potential star. He's got over 1 million Twitter followers and he's only had 1 fight. Okay, granted, it might not be for the reasons that we'd want it to be. But if you take a personality like Dillon Danis and then stack on top of that more experience, more fights, more finishes, you're all looking at a potential superstar in the making. So please, Dillon, please, just beat Logan Paul. And I've got to say, maybe it's just the excitement that's building up within me. But as time goes on, as we get closer to this fight, I'm actually favouring Dillon Danis a little bit more. Call me stupid. What am I doing, boys? I don't know. I think I'm just that excited to go to the event, have a little Johnny Walker Blue Label, have a nice juicy steak, and potentially see Logan get demolished again. What do you guys think of this? Do you think he'd do good in the UFC? Do you think he'd even be able to get into the UFC if he loses this fight? Comment your thoughts down below. And make sure you like and subscribe for more UFC and MMA content coming after this event on October the 14th. Also, keep sending me your video suggestions on Instagram before I get this Discord set up. My Instagram is in the pinned comment. I appreciate all the support. Make sure you like the video and subscribe for daily uploads. See you tomorrow.